All right, welcome back to ACR Moonshot. I'm your host, Billy Croft, with my handsome other counterpart, Joe Powell. Joe, how are you?
I am good, Billy. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm good. I'm here in the great state of Illinois, and we're in I call it the Thunderdome because there's like 40 plus mile an hour winds happening. So I can't let my dogs out because they'll fly away. But
Oh no. Okay, yeah, that
so
would be bad. Like in Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, right? They'd fly away with Toto. Yeah, that
yeah,
would be
yeah,
terrible.
it's crazy out here. I have nothing to block. We've had some crazy weather out here. We had a tornado on the ground for almost, I think it was over an hour, an F3 tornado that kind of the southern part of Illinois, and it was a big one.
Wow. Well, it is like 65 degrees outside, and the sun's coming up here in California, and it's a beautiful day. Let me know if you get blown away. I'll come and find you.
I hate you. I,
I know it's the good looks and the weather, right? I mean, how can it? Yeah, it's the package. It's the package.
it sure is. It sure is. So it's been a minute, and it's good to be back here to talk about advanced cardiac resuscitation. And today is going to be a great conversation between you and I. We're going to have some questions, and we're going to ask each other some questions, and hopefully have some really good answers for our listeners today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a great day.
But before we start, I think we need to thank our sponsor, which is Zoll. And, everything about Zoll, it's a great company. They have great devices, and, they're really doing a great job in the field with all of their products here. And, you and I can talk about this all day.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think it would be really great if we actually brought someone in that actually works for Zoll. What do you think?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Bring him in. Let's do it.
All right. Hey, Kyle, what's going on?
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, state your name for the record.
State your name.
My name is Kyle Sears. I work for Zoll Medical. I've been with Zoll just about 20 years, all in the pre-hospital EMS space. And excited, I work in the what we call the South Chicago territory. So basically the city of Chicago and then south, a little bit of Northwest Indiana. So happy to work with Naperville Fire, which Billy represents, and we're really proud to be associated with what you guys are working on with
Yeah, we
ACR.
we kind of go way back.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
And
Now,
I
wait a
and I
minute,
love
Kyle.
working with you.
You've been with Zoll for 20 years. You're like 22, right? He's
Pretty
like pretty and young, and there's
Yeah.
no way he's been there 20 years.
when I started, I was the youngest person on the sales force, and I think I'm one of the oldest people on the sales force now. So
Oh,
thank you.
really? All right, all right. Interesting.
That's good. And I go way back with your dad, and your brother's a firefighter also. He's retired now, right? I think he
He's
is.
actually the assistant chief of training at Fort Myers Beach, Florida. So when Billy talks about the weather in Illinois, my brother made a good decision and retired from McHenry Township Fire as a battalion chief and became a training chief down in Fort Myers Beach, Florida.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. So, Zoll Medical has obviously sponsored this podcast, and we have nothing but great things to say about Zoll. But let's hear it from you, Kyle. Can you talk about the company and your experience, and maybe the new monitor that came out too? That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, Zoll in general has been very good to me, and I really go back to the customers that we work with. Right, I couldn't imagine working with a better group of customers in the pre-hospital fire and EMS world. And, we have counterparts that work on the hospital team. We have all different divisions of Zoll. We've grown, exponentially in the time that I've been here. And really, everything that we focus on is resuscitation based. Whether it be, our tagline is from dispatch to discharge, right? So from the time a 911 call goes out and somebody's maybe on an AED in the field, all the way through getting discharged, wearing a life vest, which is a wearable defibrillator, which a lot of the pre-hospital providers will encounter when patients are on a life vest. Everything's resuscitation based. That's our main focus, and we're just trying to continue to expand our reach with our products. So The new device that you're referring to is the Zoll Xenix, which is our new cardiac monitor, which got FDA approval in late September. We're starting to ship those devices now. And really the focus on the Xenix and the tagline that we use was it's inspired by you. And when we say you, it's the people using it in the field, right? The feedback that we've received over the years from the providers having used Zoll equipment before, and the tweaks and the changes that we made to the Xenix, really the focus on is user interface, right? We want the experience of the provider to be really, really easy when they use our equipment. The job is hard enough, right? We don't want to overcomplicate things with our equipment. So we took all of the clinical efficacy and the technologies that Zoll has really built itself on and put it in a really clean user interface that's modern, that you would expect to see on a device that's produced in 2026. We're very excited. The Xenix also is focused on expanding the reach in the sense that we realize not all of your calls are cardiac related. So on average, about 15% of calls are STEMI and cardiac arrest, right? So the question then becomes, well, what about the other 85% of calls that you go on, right? So we're trying to bridge the gap with the Xenix and treat trauma. We have a traumatic brain injury dashboard. So the numbers are, they're pretty easy to figure out, right? So on average, we talk about, roughly 400,000 cardiac arrests every year in the United States. There's about 2.5 million traumatic brain injury calls every year in the United States. So you're going to be running, probably 4 times the amount of cardiac arrest calls when you're treating head injuries. And it's difficult to manage those types of calls. There's very specific protocols across the country where you want to maintain certain levels of systolic blood pressure, SpO2, end tidal. You want to ventilate those patients properly, which is a lot of pressure to put on a provider when, they're in the middle of doing everything else on the call. So the Xenix will allow them to track those indices to make sure they're staying within the parameters set forth in their protocols. And then we also look at other types of, indications, sepsis, for example, right? Most of our monitors get sold with temperature monitoring as well. Sepsis is a very popular change in most protocols as they're getting revised each year. So again, we want to make sure that we're bridging the gap on those types of calls that we've never really given you a tool to treat effectively. And really the biggest difference with the Xenix clinically is the ability to provide real-time ventilation feedback. So for when I started at Zoll, we had just come out with CPR feedback, and it was tough because we were going to the market trying to tell people that they needed help with CPR, and we were met with a lot of resistance. People said, "Hey, I'm great at this. I'm great at doing CPR," right? And we had to prove to them that that was probably not the case in most situations. And then you get the adoption of mechanical CPR through the years, which is great and very helpful and proven to be successful, especially in difficult situations to do compression, as is most situations in pre-hospital. So the people are sort of out of practice of doing CPR, but you can't necessarily use mechanical in every situation. There's going to be a period of time before it gets deployed that you're going to be doing manual CPR, and also on pediatric patients, right? So all of the technology is accessible for any demographic of patient. But we realized we were kind of missing a certain aspect of successful cardiac pulmonary resuscitation, and it was the pulmonary aspect, right? We weren't really doing anything from a pulmonary perspective. So the real-time ventilation feedback that we're introducing gives exact volume and rate for ventilation quality. So the same way we track rate and depth for CPR, we're now tracking it for ventilation. Because you could be doing amazing CPR and moving all the blood in the world, but if you're hyperventilating a patient, you're building up this huge positive pressure in their chest cavity, and their brain is increasing their intracranial pressure. None of that good blood that you're moving around is getting to the places where you want it to for good neurological functionality, which obviously is, the point of all of this. So we believe the ventilation feedback is really a game changer. The same way CPR feedback is now standard of care and recommended by the AHA, we believe that over time, the ventilation feedback will also be, considered that same standard of care.
Billy, do we need to be on the podcast? We just let Kyle talk, right? He's got all the
so.
pressure.
He's got it nailed.
Yeah, no. The amazing thing, Kyle, is as I look at the new monitor and all the clinical benefits, and I'm always extremely excited to see how clinically focused Zoll is. But what I always get a little entertained by is, it has all of these great clinical benefits, and it definitely the device itself, with all of the tools it has, allows us to get more neurologically intact survivors. And when I talk to people about the new device, they're excited about the user interface, and they're excited about the dial, and they're excited about, oh, the paper goes here, or the whatever, right, the end-tidal CO2, or what, all of the touchy feely things, and they're excited about the clinical stuff, but they're even more excited it's got a little dial. So it's always kind of funny to me.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, we, to this day lose deals sometimes because we don't have a turn dial. So the Zenix has a turn dial, which allows people to not only use the touchscreen user interface, which we anticipate most people choosing to use, but whether it be as a backup or somebody that's just used to using a turn dial, we added that to the Zenix to make it easy for everybody using the device, and really just encouraging them to continue to use the clinical features that we're developing, right, and make it easy for them to use it on patients.
Well, that's wonderful. Wonderful, Kyle. And, we appreciate you coming on and talking about Zoll Medical and all the great things they're doing. And obviously we'll put your contact info in the notes, and how to get a hold of Zoll if you're interested in any of their products, from ventilators to mechanical CPR devices. And, we didn't even get into, the whole data analytics that goes behind the scene with case review. So really good stuff there. And, if you're interested, just check out the notes, and, I'm sure someone will get a hold of you. Thanks, Kyle.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for
doing
it.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like doing that. I mean, we can talk all day about Zoll and, their products, but why not talk to an expert like Kyle?
Yeah, get the SMEs, right? The subject matter experts talking about what they know the best, right? You and I can kind of ramble on, but they know exactly.
Everybody looks at equipment differently, from a leadership perspective, chief officers down to the line. Everybody has a different view on what they want. But, personally, me as a leader in my organization, I always look at, all right, what are these devices? What kind of outcomes will they produce for you? Is it great that it has a turn dial or all these other bells and whistles, but what is that actually doing for the patient? So I always look at those things, and it really does come down to training and figuring these things out, and how do you incorporate it into your system and produce some positive outcomes from those tools.
Sometimes you'll hear, a monitor is a monitor, right? A mechanical CPR device is a mechanical CPR device, and fortunately or unfortunately, I know how you look at it, that's not the case, right? Some of the tools that we're using and that Zoll provides have a significant clinical benefit over other devices. Like you said, case review, the ability to gather all your data, whether that's ventilation data or CPR data, right? Or to measure, whether you're doing in real time, good compressions, good rate, good recoil, or good ventilations, the right rate, the right volume, right? All of those things affect all of the pressures that we talk about on a regular basis, right? And it's all pressure management. So as we talk about pressure management, you got to be able to see whether or not you're managing the pressures correctly. And those devices allow you to do that, right? And so a monitor isn't a monitor. Mechanical CPR device isn't a mechanical CPR device, right? We've got to look at, what mechanical CPR device produces the best map, right? And how do we get the most blood to the brain? How do we get the most neurologically intact survivors? And so just some things that our audience should be looking at when they're looking at purchasing devices, or, what devices they're going to use. So it's got to be usable, right? If it's not usable, people aren't going to use this stuff, right? It's got to be usable. It's got to be easy to interface, right? That kind of thing. But you also have to look at the clinical side of it.
Yeah, most definitely. A good point, Joe. Everybody's different. You got to weigh all those things out for sure. So I think this is a good segue into, our episode here. We always have people asking us questions, right? And we try to provide those answers. So, we're going to try to, sift through, we go across the country and we talk about advanced cardiac resuscitation and our bundle of care and all these things. And hopefully we can hit on some of those questions that we get most frequently, and maybe some other things that you haven't thought of. And we'll try to give you some good quality answers to those questions, and we're going to kind of go, back and forth. So, maybe this is kind of, do you consider us experts, Joe?
I sort of do. I mean,
All right.
every once in a while I'm like, I can't be an expert. Come on now, right? But if I guess if you had to look at who was an expert in cardiac arrest resuscitation, right, we might fit somewhere under that bill. We might have a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah, right, right. So, maybe this is ACR conversations with the experts, Q&A with Joe and Billy. How about that?
Let's
I
do
think
it.
that,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right,
Yeah.
let's do it. All right. Well, Joe, I know we talk about pressures, right? We're in the pressure management business, right?
Right,
You
right, right.
talk about that a lot when you go out and speak. I think we need to dive into that a little bit more. Because personally, I think this was a game changer, not only for myself to start thinking about cardiac arrest this way, but it was also a game changer for my organization, right? Once we started shifting, running that typical ACLS type of cardiac arrest, and we started shifting our mindset to a pressure management business, it's like the light bulb went on, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
saw a great improvement. So let's talk about cerebral perfusion pressure, right? Um,
Okay.
Specifically in cardiac arrest. And how do you view that relationship between mean arterial pressure and intracranial pressure when we're trying to maintain cerebral perfusion pressure?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I think Billy, when we first got to kind of say that, we're looking to, and I think what you were describing at your department was once we started looking at a physiologic cardiac arrest,